I don't know. Maybe like that.
Oh, is that the
Oh yeah.
Did we figure out the video thing?
I dropped my stuff there.
Did we get it to work? Is it not working? There you go.
Okay. I guess you have to hit.
You just got to be patient. Yeah.
I'm gonna.
You just have to hit it a couple times. So this is like all PCs made for Windows. So when you put Linux on them, they don't like you.
Do you want it to display like this, or?
So you come up here and do this. Slide mode. We're having trouble finding it. Oh, you haven't done the Wi-Fi?
Not on this one, no.
So.
Yeah, I did not do anything with Wi-Fi. I'm gonna run back downstairs and see if there's any stragglers.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Next time we'll be a little bit better about this. How about that? Or not. When that works.
We weren't liars till we started working with technology.
You want to put in the.
Oh yeah, you make me type the long string.
Yeah. Are you even on the window?
Oh, and your trackpad's backwards on this.
Huh? No, you're just used to a Mac trackpad.
I'll let you go for that. I'll let you go. This driving your screw is fucking crazy.
No, did it come back up?
Capital R.
Yeah.
You can show the password. That's not like it's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's saying you're not long enough. Moonstone 6 dash boat. There we go. I'll try it. Now we go into F11 full screen mode. I don't know what that is.
Oh.
Yeah, you can just use the arrow keys for that. And this is an omnidirectional microphone. You can hold it, clip it, do whatever you want.
Did it sound okay last time?
It did.
Okay. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I think we've hit critical mass so far. If you're new, welcome. If you were here last time, welcome back again, and we'll try to remember your names at some point in the future. I'd like to thank our hosts, Andy and Matt, for helping resurrect NoVaLUG and finding this good space and sponsorship. And who's our sponsor again? Ridgeline. Thank you. I'll get it down. I'll get it down. On the back wall is the Wi-Fi or the QR code on the front. Oh, and again, my name is Darren Kara. I'm friends with Andy, and you can just call me MC Kara or something like that. NoVaLUG details, mailing list, website, meetup, Mastodon, Fostodon, I guess. I just couldn't get into it, but I'll try again. You're a Mastodon user?
Yeah, no, I like it. It just, well, I never used like Twitter.
Okay.
I just, I don't know. It's kind of nice because there's not like weird rage bait or anything, and I don't, I don't know. I follow like BBC News and George Takei and
Without all the cruft.
yeah, and like a bunch of tech people.
Okay.
Emacs.ch, it's hosted in Europe.
Okay.
A lot of
Okay, that's the Emacs table back there. He's in the right place.
So this is I'm on is like a social Linux pizza.
Linux pizza.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
So-
Linux pizza.
A few more meeting logistics things so we can get rolling. We are being recorded and streamed online. I don't know. Do we have release forms?
Yeah, I signed all my release forms.
Okay. Again, many thanks to Ridgeline International for helping us out. If you haven't signed in, all visitors need to sign in up front. We also have name badges. If you haven't made a name badge, we would appreciate it. And we will be getting validation tickets from the Ridgeline guys here in a few.
Oh, let me.
Icebreaker, open source Santa.
Yes.
Is this going to work for you?
It'll work. Hold on. I'll come do that. So, so we did an icebreaker last time. It seemed to work pretty well. But the idea is that people can get comfortable and then to ask questions. Normally, we're a bunch of introverts, right? Some of you aren't apparently, but so the idea was I actually have this doll thing at the house. And it is a Santa, so I just named it Open Source Santa. And the idea was I was going to clip this omnidirectional lavalier mic to it, and then pass it. We're going to pass it around. Guess what I forgot this morning in the rush to put everything together. So we're just going to pretend that we have an open source Santa, that he can hear all our wishes. You're going this will be your open source Santa today. So what we want to do is when you get the token, state your name or some way you want people to identify you. Actually, I don't care what you want to call yourself, and then you can say a little something about yourself, and then you want to ask Open Source Santa for a wish. Now, I realize I'm kind of putting a lot of you on the spot for what for wishing for something from Open Source Santa. So I have a couple stock wishes for you. If you want to just reuse one of those, you're more than welcome to. So the first one was I wish FreeBSD use systemd. So that's a pretty good one. I wish I knew how to quit out of Vim. And I wish you'd shut up already so we can talk about NixOS. So you feel free to reuse any one of those that you want. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Andy. I'm a principal engineer for ICANN, and the thing I wish for is actually a desktop class RISC-V processor. So go ahead and start with you, Dave.
Okay, I'm Dave, and I wish I could get Debian installed on my laptop.
I'm Chris. Let's see, what do I want to let's see. I've been a Gentoo user for a very long time, probably about 20 years. So with a small break for about 5 years after my Gentoo
No shame in your gatekeeper.
crashed and burned, and then I got fed up. But anyway, so I've been back on it for the last year. Let's see. I wish Gentoo was a more widely accepted distribution.
I'm Jim Burks. I've gotten over the last 2 years captured 29 squirrels in a backyard. Got another one 3 days ago. So my wish is today I'll capture another squirrel.
Wow. Okay.
Happy hunting.
I don't know if Open Source Santa can help you with that.
My name's Charlie Head. I'm a nuclear engineer, electrical engineer, and a computer guy. I picked up Linux sort of on my own, all by myself, years and years ago. I'm using Linux Mint right now. I'll ask Open Source Santa for TurboTax that will run on Linux.
My name is Wing, and currently doing some reliability engineering kind of stuff. I would wish from Open Source Santa to better documentation and how to like Golang templates to render dynamic implementations of the file.
Specific.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt, and working with Andy, one of the co-organizers of the meetings that we're doing now. I'm an economist by training, just kind of tinkering with open source and Linux kind of for fun as a hobby. But if I had a wish for open source Santa, it'd be to have better mobile Linux support on mobile devices. I'm pretty excited about that.
Ali Sayed here. I'm a senior engineering and technical maintenance manager working for PBS. I used to be a NoVaLUG member and used to attend, and then COVID happened and all that, and then but now I'm picking up again, and I'm a hobbyist for for Linux. Don't call myself expert, nowhere near to that. Learning and want to be part of this group. You can see me over here, I think.
And what do you want open source Santa to give you?
Exactly. Yes. Whatever freebies.
He is a beer.
Hi, I'm John Place. I'm a DevOps engineer for SRE, whatever they're calling us this week. I've done the same job for a long time, and I've had a lot of skip titles. But I like most people. I want open source Santa to not make it DNS. I'm Sean from Midline. Thanks so much for coming today. Apologize for the hiccup that we had. Late to host.
Yep.
So we'll try to make it better next time. So it's a little bit more seamless. I know that's what you all wish for. So I'm the network operations manager here. Or not, and what I wish for, from an operations perspective, is for distros to stop putting their update channels behind paywall.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikolai. I work as a remote front-end developer for a social media analytics company. I have a gaming PC. I'm really into online gaming, streaming, and all that. And I'm running Endeavor OS, which is pretty much Arch Linux. And I have to use proprietary video graphics, to have fun with my games and do my stuff. What I want from open source Santa is quality Wayland support for NVIDIA graphics. Yeah,
It's called Nobara, dude. It's called Nobara.
I like when I want to swap to Hyperland. I use it on my coding laptop already, but if I could use Hyperland everywhere and just unify my dot files, unification of my dot files, that's probably the biggest wish.
My name is Vincent Wu. I work at Samsung. I don't have a strong desire for a particularly strong wish for open source Santa. I work at a source company, so maybe my wish would be that your data is stored securely. Latency and high bandwidth.
See, my name's Ed Lewis. I work with Andy and Darren at ICANN. I've been a lifelong researcher and never really done anything. Now I'm doing DNS all the time. So what I wish for, I actually have like a whole long.
Can only do one.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair
I
down.
was picking one. I'd like an open source way to do what I can do with my Mac OS and managing photographs off my phones, many tablets, many computers. Apple has a way that gets it all kind of seamlessly put together, but there are like 10% of its bugs, and I have to do manual fixes to that. The back end of their stuff is accessible, but you have to write all this code out there that no one's doing. And I'd like to have open source ways of fixing things in proprietary software and Apple stuff. I could go on.
I'm Gustav. I'm a systems analyst and working with Linux for about 25 years now. And I guess what I would wish from open source Santa is, well, I'll be controversial. Every IDE and editor should be dead. But still how to quit out of it.
Up here.
Hi, I'm Kevin, general IT engineer, specializing these days more in cybersecurity than anything. Used to be a NoVaLUG guy way back in the day when Peter was running it extensively, and before that, yeah, when Greg was operating here extensively. My wish for open source Santa, I got about 1,000, but I'll tell you what, one of them is I'd like to have a pen test version of Linux that runs on bloody Fedora and not Arch or Debian. Actually, if I maybe also open source Santa's help, you need help on Debian? I can help you with that. Because I put them together and put them back together so many times.
It's something weird with my laptop. I can put any type of Linux on it except for the Debian.
I would like to.
And you can. It just you have to get if you put it on there, you have to like go through BIOS menu and then click on the kernel itself, and then it comes up. It just doesn't.
This sounds like a breakout session.
Yeah.
So once again, I'm Darren Kara. What would I ask Open Source Santa for? But I have a couple things. A, no shaming, no distro shaming, but it's okay to shame Emacs. Just I want to set the ground rules here.
Never have to leave it. All I said is I'm sorry that you use Gentoo because the installation process requires a great deal of skill and patience.
Oh, good save.
I don't think have.
Good save. Good save.
That's what I meant.
Okay, squirrels. I've got a one that runs around in front of my house. I finally got a picture. It's like the great white squirrel, right? I don't know if it's an albino or it's a blonde squirrel, but I'm totally fascinated by it, trying to hunt it down with my camera.
I left my trap out overnight one time, thinking I'll catch the squirrels early, and they won't be out during the night. Instead, I caught one of the night creatures, a raccoon.
Ooh, dangerous. And my request for Open Source Santa has been granted. Well, I have all of you here, and we appreciate that. Once again, to Sean and Ron of Ridgeline, thank you. Can't thank you enough. Job openings or jobs. Raise your hand if you have a job opening. You want to quickly describe it. Anybody this week? Nope, nothing open this week. Okay.
So Ridgeline always has job openings, but I don't want to toot our own horn. We've always got engineers and knock technicians and front end and back end, full stack development positions open all the time. So if anybody's looking, that's not.
No, thank you. That's good to know. And once again, I work with Andy at ICANN. I'm in charge of network and DNS infrastructure for ICANN and our root server operations. Main presentation, IO load testing with, is it FIO or FIO?
Yeah.
FIO?
Well,
FIO.
I use FIO, but so I actually have a draft blog post about this. But,
I just want to make sure I'm saying it right, and for history's sake, it gets said properly at the beginning.
We don't want to go full tip on this.
Let's see.
Just clip it here. Shirt or something. Make sure the green light's still on. Yep. All right.
oh, this again.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to reboot.
I hope not. What are you running? Oh,
Mint. Window P won't Is that a Linux or Windows? Linux.
you said Mint.
Is it a KDE bit? Or no? This is the default. So.
No KDE, just the window P, and it will open up a thing you can do. Market.
I plug in the cable again. Let's this one in. Kind of pain that sometimes.
Still nothing.
Yeah.
Get your adapter. See if that works.
Yeah, transistors are tired. You will have trouble.
I have a thumb drive if you want to put it on there. You can try that.
Here, try that real quick. Nope.
Okay, perfect. Huh. Oh, okay.
Kind of slip just behind you. Thank you.
It has an Intel GPU, like an APU, but it also has an NVIDIA MX20. And I have to try to get NVIDIA Optimus working or whatever tool graphics is so impossible. I just put open source graphics on it.
Nice.
Okay. All right, I think we're set. Yeah, thanks to Andy and Darren and Ridgeline, the rest of the NoVaLUG crew for inviting me to come here. And thanks to you guys for showing up. My name is Vincent Fu. I am a software engineer at Samsung Semiconductor. And I'm here to talk to you about FIO, the flexible I/O tester. So I'm just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip this. The first commit for FIO was almost 20 years ago by Jens Axbo, who is the maintainer of the Linux block layer. It's hosted on GitHub. I guess the canonical repository is self-hosted by Jens on a machine at his home, but it's mirrored on GitHub. Has about almost 5,000 stars, 1,000 forks, about 2,000 clones a day. It's a not to toot my own horn, but it's a pretty important project. It's used by storage vendors to qualify their devices. It's also used by projects like block tests and FS tests to make sure that the Linux kernel is storing your data securely. So if FIO is giving you wrong results, all these tests might be faulty, and you might end up with data loss. So just like all the other tools that we use, it's a big part of the whole chain. So from the README, Jens originated FIO because as the maintainer of the block layer, he often had to run tests to make sure bugs were fixed or confirm performance improvements. And originally he would write little one-off programs to do this, but then he decided that it's nice to have a flexible program that can run all sorts of different I/O workloads to save him time. So that's how FIO ended up getting created. So my involvement with FIO, I worked with Jens for a time at a company based in Salt Lake City called Fusion IO. Fusion IO was sold PCIe attached storage devices. Nowadays, all the PCIe attached storage devices you see are NVMe devices, but this is before the NVMe standard was created. So we used FIO for performance testing and validation, and I got involved with the project by running a cluster of machines where we tested our devices every night to make sure none of the changes to our driver hurt performance. Eventually, I started helping coworkers with bug fixes and feature requests for FIO. Been a co-maintainer for almost 2 years, since 2022, and I also have a blog that I maintain talking about FIO. So sometimes the documentation isn't a good place for a longer discussion of some FIO feature or something related to FIO. So who doesn't have a blog these days, I guess. So I use this opportunity, use the blog to just write about things that happen related to FIO. If you want to use FIO, it's almost certainly available in your distribution's package manager. You can use whatever incantation your distribution requires to install it. Debian or Red Hat based distributions should have FIO. Can also, of course, build it yourself. We have continuous integration testing for FIO, and you can poke around to see some instructions or some of the packages that can be required for building FIO. And there's also documentation. A couple of years ago, some helpful collaborator set up a read the docs site for FIO. And it's all online, and this is much better than looking at a text file. You can all the different options are linked. It's very easy to navigate, very convenient to use. My coworkers and I, when we use FIO, or storage vendors when they use FIO, we test storage devices, aspects of storage devices that probably aren't super interesting to a general audience. I'm just going to talk about a couple examples of how maybe a general user, general Linux enthusiast might be interested in using FIO. And these two examples are just for data persistence and performance, measuring performance. So for data persistence, the idea is that you buy a new hard drive or a new SSD fresh out of the box, and you want to make sure that before you put your precious data on it, you want to make sure that it's in reasonable working order. So this is just an example of doing a full write, writing all the blocks on your storage device, and then reading everything back to make sure that what you wrote, you can actually get that data back. Okay? And for if you're interested enough in Linux to come to a meeting like this, this is probably old hat to you, but I want to make sure to spend a couple of minutes on this, because if you make a mistake, you can totally hose your system. So for this kind of test, the first thing to talk about is just to identify the device that you want to test. I've installed a new NVMe device in this system, and the utility I'm using here is lsblock that just lists all the block devices on my system. And I know, from the label on the box that this device is about 110 gigabytes. So that's the one I'm going to test. Okay, so okay, this is not working, right? Okay, so well, it's highlighted there. So the device I want to test is about 110 gigabytes, and my system disk is NVMe 0 and 1, so I don't want to make sure I don't write to that one. I don't run my destructive test against that device. Okay. To run FIO, the way I'm going to show you now for this first example is with a job file. Okay, just a text file in INI file format. This test here is just the name of the file, or excuse me, the name of the job. The BS variable, or it tells FIO that I want it to issue IOs size 64K at a time. The RW option, I'm telling FIO that I want it to issue a sequential write workload. The first write the first 64K blocks, 64K of the device, and the second 64K of the device, and so on and so forth. This verify option is telling FIO that after it finishes the write phase of the workload, I want it to read all the data back and then calculate a CRC32C checksum on all the data and make sure that everything matches. So when you're running a verify workload, FIO will have a verify header at the beginning of each write request. Maybe 100 bytes that includes the checksum for the rest of the data and some other information, so that when it reads the 64K back, it'll calculate a new checksum on the data read back and compare with what was in the header. Okay, and then this last line here, I'm telling FIO the device I want it to test. Okay? And this matches with what LS block told me. Okay, so hopefully you guys have good eyesight. Like most Linux utilities, if there's no error messages, if there's no complaints, the return code is 0. That means everything succeeded. So this run succeeded. There's no error messages, and we just get some information on how fast all the IOs happened. So the write phase of this run proceeded at a rate of 13,000 IOPS. FIO wrote at 824 megabytes a second, and in total it wrote 110 gigabytes in about 137 seconds. So that was filling the whole device with data. And then in the verify phase, this went a little bit faster. FIO was able to verify the device at 24K, at a rate of 24K IOPS, or 1.5 gigabytes a second. And again, it read 110 gigabytes and in about 74 seconds. So there's a ton of other data, information about the IO run, latency, average, min and max, and a bunch of percentiles, and then information about disk utilization, CPU utilization, etc. that FIO will print out for you. Okay, before I go on, any questions about this? Yeah.
Does it calculate, like, if you get a drive, is there a way to test whether it's been used or like how many hours it has on the drive? Things that you would test for on the drive before putting it in production, other than just rewrite?
Yeah, FIO doesn't give you information about like power on hours or anything like that, but there's like smart control that can tell you that. Yeah, it actually does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, for an NVMe device, there's also NVMe CLI that will also give you a lot of information. Yeah.
Does it save all this data in some log file somewhere?
No.
Just pipe it in.
Yeah. Well, there's an option you can have it write all this output to a text file.
Okay. Okay, and can you run it on a rated volume as well?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's exposed as a, if it's something you can create a file system on, if it's exposed as a block device, if it shows up in LS block as device, then you could do that as well. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. For NFS, there's actually an NFS IO engine. So one of the building blocks of FIO is this concept of an IO engine where
it translates read, write, and trim requests into something intelligible to different I/O interfaces. Yeah, so there's an NFS I/O engine. For iSCSI, I'm not so sure about that, but yeah, there's a way. There's an example for an NFS I/O engine. You would tell FIO you want to, your target is an NFS device, and then you can issue reads and writes to it.
And I can install it on any flavor of Linux.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, any is a large set, but yeah. So yes.
Even I had it on Gentoo. I was looking on the.
Okay.
Installed it before.
Okay. Yeah. I'm confident that it's widely available. Even
there's only 2 versions behind.
yeah, even Windows. Any other questions? Okay, so the second example I want to talk about is performance testing, and this is, there's some numbers on the box, printed on the box that your device came in, and you want to make sure that all the wires are connected correctly, or your device is correctly seated in the socket. Can you reproduce the marketing numbers on the box? And there are a couple principles behind performance testing that are important to talk about. The first of these is that you want to do asynchronous I/O with a high I/O depth. So if you don't care that much about performance, you can issue an I/O and then wait for it to complete, and then issue another I/O, wait for it to complete. But if you really want to beat on your device, you want to throw a whole ton of I/Os at it, and then let your device optimize, however it likes, and then your device will let your program know that this I/O is completed, that I/O is completed, so it can just complete a bunch of I/Os at a time, and you have a bunch of I/Os in flight outstanding at a time, so to get the highest levels of performance. So that's this idea behind asynchronous I/O with high I/O depth. And the second idea here is you want to open your device with a flag called O direct. Does anybody know what this flag might mean? Okay, yeah. By default, the Linux kernel will do a lot of buffering. Okay? So if you read some block here, it might read a couple blocks later on, a couple blocks before that, just in case you ask for it next. So you get really responsive performance. When you do writes, the Linux kernel will buffer that write in a cache, and maybe write it out later on when your device isn't too busy. Okay? So if you benchmark your device with the default settings, you're basically benchmarking your host system's RAM performance because of all this buffering. With this O direct flag, what you're doing is you're telling the kernel to skip all this buffering, just send the writes, send the reads directly to the device. Okay? So that's a more accurate way to measure your device performance. The third idea here is that you want to have multiple jobs. If you have just a single CPU core dedicated to sending read requests and sending write requests, you might not reach the limits of your device. Okay? So modern devices, high-performance devices, we need multiple cores sending read and write requests to really saturate, to push them to their limits. And then finally, FIO has an option called ramp time. The first time through, the first I/O, handful of I/Os, your CPU's cache isn't warmed up yet. Your CPU's branch predictors aren't warmed up yet. So the idea here is that you want to run your workload for a few seconds to get everything warmed up, and then after that happens, then you start actually measuring your performance levels. Okay, so these are the some principles of performance testing that seem to enable you to get to peak performance levels. Okay, so this is another job file, again in INI file format. Top here is just the name, not particularly imaginative, just an arbitrary label or name for your test. I talked about IO engines a second ago. I'm choosing the IOU ring IO engine. This is an asynchronous IO engine that is pretty efficient, very efficient. So this will let us push the device to its limits. I'm testing the same device as before, NVMe 1 and 1. And now with num jobs, I'm telling FIO that I want it to spawn 4 identical jobs with the same set of options. Group reporting, I'm telling FIO that instead of spitting out a separate panel of results for each of these jobs, I want it just to combine all the bandwidth and IOPS, the latency numbers together, and print out a single summary of all these 4 different jobs together. Then I want the job to run for 30 seconds, but I want the measurement to have a duration of 30 seconds, but I want FIO to warm everything up, have a ramp time of 5 seconds first before it actually starts measuring or starts the clock on this 30 seconds. And then direct equals 1 tells FIO that I want it to open the device with an ODirect flag. I'm measuring 4K IOs, 4K random read IOs with an IO depth of 64. So each of these 4 different jobs will have 64 IOs outstanding at a time. And then finally, time-based tells FIO that instead of just writing the whole device, I want it to pay attention to this runtime parameter and stop after 30 seconds.
Is it customizable, the runtime?
Yeah, I mean, you can run for 300 seconds or 1 hour or 1 day or, yeah. Okay, so this is the output. Yeah, so the IOPS number is 429,100,000, and got a bandwidth of 1.6 gigabytes a second. So, and for this particular device, that matched what was printed on the box or what the spec sheet listed. Okay. Yes.
So all the parameters and everything is, I'm assuming, in a text file called perf.file?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Yes.
The last number of util, is that how much the disk was tested?
The very
last number on the bottom.
Yeah. So
it says util 99.82%. Does that mean that during this testing, that's the percentage of blocks of the device that we're actually hit? Is that
disk utilization. So this tells us that the device was utilized at a level of 99%, almost 100%. So
Yeah, throughput probably, I imagine.
So I'm just curious. So the question I'm after is, how would you know if this test actually runs?
If this test what?
If you this run, which you did, is there a way this would run when it maxed out the device? Like, outside of just trying bigger and bigger workloads, is there a way for it to tell you that this is what I measured given your parameters, and by the way, I could have gone faster?
Yeah, I mean, the only way to tell that is just to
run it bigger.
Right. Try, 8. This was run with 4 jobs. You could try with 8 jobs, and to see if performance increased or not. So, yeah. So this is the these numbers, IOPS and bandwidth numbers, are what was printed on the box when I got this device. So, I assume that that's the maximum performance that you can get from this device.
Kind of what back in my mind is that sometimes you get someone a great tool like this, and it just does a really good job of measuring performance in some way. But if the tool doesn't know they haven't taxed it enough to actually get the number high enough, or they don't play with some of the parameters we talked about, like direct I/O, they may not be using the tool correctly to get a real good result. So, I mean, it's great if you get everyone all these tools and knobs, but sometimes you still have to educate the person using it to make sure this works, or have a tool take over more of that.
and say, you really want direct IO, direct on there. And don't mess with that. But let someone who's an expert turn off if they really want to, which they probably don't. Sometimes exposing too many knobs to a user can confuse them. So from my experience using tools like this.
Yeah, well, I don't think this is a tool. This is a tool for a general. I think it's somebody who really wants to geek out on their storage devices.
When you're setting up the parameters, you need to know how to exit out of them.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to really tell, I guess, is just to experiment with the parameters. Like, try a higher I/O depth or more jobs and see if your performance improves. And
you said there were a couple of other projects that were using File as a back end, right?
Right. So, and those are more targeted toward data integrity.
Oh,
so,
data integrity.
right, like every file system, has a bunch of tests for creating files and making sure you can read the data back, or deleting files and making sure the whole file system still is functioning. And FIO is used in a lot of those different projects.
Can you explain one more time what is 99.82% utilization mean actually?
Yeah, that's of the IOs of the IOs sent to the device. 99.82% of them were sent by FIO, and yeah, so that's it might be some sort of measurement issue, because the device should not have been accessed by any other device or any other program while this test was being run. So yeah, I'm not sure why it's not 100.
So what I'm understanding, the benchmark testing could be different for each person or each environment, right? If a certain application that I want to deploy on my system, and that has a certain benchmark requirement, I run this, and as long as I see the numbers matching or exceeding, that satisfies. However, that was a good question. That like, how do I really know that I am really pushing the limits of the system? And it is something that for the drive that I'm intending to install or use can be utilized beyond what my benchmark points are for later, for example.
Well, my assumption is that the manufacturer, the storage vendor, will put the highest performance levels they can on the technical specifications document. So this device was advertised about to reach about 400,000 IOPS and a bandwidth of 1.6 gigabytes a second. So if I'm able to reach those targets with my benchmark run, then I think I'll just call it good, because if the device manufacturer could have advertised higher specs, it probably would have. So if you can reach the advertised performance, then I think it's unlikely the device is going to be able to do better than that.
Do you know if manufacturers are using FIO to validate their products?
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, Samsung, obviously, right?
Yeah. I don't work directly with our product teams. I probably should have said this at the beginning. So I don't know the nitty-gritty details behind the marketing numbers that Samsung attaches to their devices. But at Fusion IO, we use FIO, and our marketing people would take the results that my group generated and put them on our advertising. So and there are a lot of storage manufacturers that are storage vendors that use FIO. Western Digital, Micron has contributed to FIO. Hynix has been involved in FIO, but yeah, I'm ignorant of the exact details. Intel actually does a pretty good job of giving talking about the IO depth, number of jobs for their benchmarks. But yeah, I think a lot of storage vendors, want to keep those details close to the vest. Yeah.
So is this primarily for physically mounted devices, or is it any storage device mounted to your file system?
Yeah, he did everything on us.
Is it?
Yeah. So the architecture file lets it be pretty flexible. There's actually an HTTP IO engine that lets you access S3 storage. It uses puts and gets as reads and writes. Anything that you can imagine a read request or a write request or a trim request that a device can serve, you can use file to test.
Great, thank you.
If I'm understanding that correctly, if I had like a remote network share, I could test the connection with the hardware with this.
Sure. I mean, if it's mounted, you can create a file.
Oh,
right?
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's gonna test your full network stack
Yeah.
plus the storage on the back end.
Oh yeah, that okay.
I mean, you do have to be careful because
Oh.
the number of people are using that device. It can affect
Well, I thought
your
that's
performance
it.
numbers.
I immediately thought of both good and evil.
Yeah.
All the best tools are.
Okay, I'm happy now.
Well,
This was definitely worth coming to.
Yeah.
To the perspective there. I want to ask one more question, following up my capacity. Does this, so what I'm after is, if I'm testing a system and I find out that I'm waiting on it, I'm exceeding its limits, right? If I'm not pushing it, I'm not waiting on it, generally. Usually if I'm pushing a workload onto a system I want to test, the idea is that if I have to wait for it to respond to me, I know that I've hit its capacity. So from this output here, is there a way to see how much time the tester here was waiting on response from the other side? Was it always getting response like right away? Is it showing that?
Yeah, probably the latency numbers would be what you're interested in. I mean, you always have to wait a little bit, right? Because
right, there's a certain point where the threshold is that, if I'm waiting, I'm queuing up, then I'm obviously overdoing it. If I'm never queuing, then I'm not getting it. Now, is there a way to tell whether the test was in that situation where it's saturated or not, just from the output?
yeah, I think so. What you would want to do is run a very simple test with just a synchronous test with just one request at a time, and that'll tell you the lowest latency that's possible, right? So probably the latency numbers are what you're interested in. So I would start with a simple latency test just to get your minimum latency numbers. Just if a single request at a time, how long that takes to get serviced, and then to see if you're really putting pressure on your device, run a harder test with a queue depth of 128 or 256 with a bunch of jobs, and to see how much your latency increases. So if the device is unloaded, there's no load on the device, you have one latency measurement, and then if once there is load on the device, you can see how much your latency deteriorates. And that'll tell you something about how the device functions under load. Yeah.
This is kind of broken out in the Q&A so far. Do you have more slides to get through?
Just a couple.
Just a couple. Why don't we let you finish up the slides and then we'll ask one question.
Right.
We have.
Yeah, I'm going to skip this, but there's some basics about defining a FIO job. A couple of noteworthy features. I've shown you how you can use a job file, but if it's more convenient, you can just specify everything on the command line. File can do logging if you want. It can, every second it can write the IOPS or bandwidth in that second in a separate file, or the latency in that 1 second period. File can do steady state detection. I've shown all this output is called normal output, but if you're using this in a script, you might want an output format that's easier to parse. So File can do a JSON output, and also File has a bunch of example job files because you know, there's a steep learning curve. So maybe these example JAWG files fit something that you're interested in, and it can help you get started. There's been, you know, pretty active development in FIO recently. We have a new, relatively new IOU ring command IO engine that lets us test newish NVMe features that aren't supported by the Linux kernel. We have end-to-end data protection support that's been added recently. You know, sometimes you have devices with 520 byte sectors. Now FIO can operate with those. There's a new part of the NVMe standard called FTP, or Flexible Data Placement. FIO recently got support for that. I fixed a bug recently for performance on AMD systems. Maybe I haven't been around long enough, but you know, for 99.99% of my work, or before this, you know, AMD and Intel CPUs behaved identically, but I found one instance where they didn't, which was interesting and a surprise to me. So I was able to fix that. And FIO runs on a bunch of different platforms, but you know, most of our testing and development is on x86, little endian, but there are some folks that run FIO on big endian systems, and there's one place where FIO didn't handle something very well, and was able to fix that up. Yeah, so you're welcome to get involved. I'm always looking for contributors, or you know, people have questions. We have a GitHub, also a kernel-style mailing page, and yeah. Oh, yeah. I should have talked a little bit about where I work.
Never heard of it.
So I'm on Samsung's global open ecosystem team. We used to be called the global open source team, but now we still support open source. We're still involved in open source, but we're also we expanded our purview to different ecosystems. Yeah, my group is spread out all over the world: Korea, China, Denmark, India, and most of my team is in San Jose or in California. Samsung recognizes the importance of open source, so it established this Ghost team a couple years ago. All of us contribute to open source. We have some kernel maintainers, people who contribute to QEMU, NVMe CLI, a bunch of different open source projects, all because, you know, Samsung recognizes the importance of open source for its products.
So is your role at Samsung, can you work on FIO during the day? Or
Yeah, that's my job.
Major
So,
job.
yeah.
That's nice that they're paying us.
Yeah.
Open source developers.
Yeah, I'm super fortunate.
Yeah.
And do you live in San Jose?
I live in Rockville. I work remotely. So, yeah. So
I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
First one, potentially very stupid, but I'll try it anyway. I have never run into anybody who talked about having to warm up a solid state system to get performance out of it before. Is that a rather routine operation?
you know, this is just kind of the received wisdom that I've heard. I'll confess that I haven't actually done the test with and without this. I think I talked about this ramp time, 5 seconds of ramp time, to see what happens. But you know, based on my understanding of, you know, how CPUs work, it seems like a reasonable pattern to follow. So
Well, if you were talking about a vacuum tube system, I can understand what it is that's warming up, and once the filaments get hot, it's going to stay warmed up, you know, as long as you keep supplying power. But in a a solid state system, what's getting warmed up, and does it immediately stop being warmed up as soon as the data flow shifts to another part of the system?
Yeah, I think he was mentioning branch prediction, right? So branch prediction, if you don't have enough data coming in to fill a branch prediction queue, right, then you're not going to get the optimized form or the optimal performance of the CPU. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that convinces me.
CPU caching and things like that.
Warm up is uses a narrow term, and that really has something to do with the drive and or away from just the drive space, but it catch all warmed up, CPU knows where it's going, everything else. Always that first, for the rest of us, first time you do something that has to do with DNS lookup, go look up an IP address, that would be considered warm up. The very first time it has it now, next time you do that thing, it's a lot quicker. That's a really basic, that's up to this phase, but kind of
That's
same
what
term usable though.
Well, yeah, I guess when you're measuring something like this, when you're measuring performance, you want everything consistent, right? And so if you're starting with nothing in the CPU cache or nothing in the branch prediction until you get all that stuff loaded, right? You're not going to get a consistent performance test.
Not just the device, you're testing also the system. So
Yeah.
faster than others. So you're just trying to focus on the device, so you're trying to remove that variable.
This does not necessarily mean the electronic part of the system are wound up. It's just transaction patterns, overall system is now smooth.
Just like a smoke test, we're not literally like a run around, smoke go all out CPU.
Oh, can I ask you one more question?
Is it short?
So who would use this software, and when would they use it? I mean, is it part of deciding what components you would put into a data center, or how else exactly would you use it?
I can talk about a previous employer how we use FIO. I mean, storage vendors use FIO to make sure that the devices behave appropriately, that the features that are developed actually work the way they're advertised to do. The Linux kernel community, kernel developers, file system developers, they use FIO to make sure that the file system works the way it's supposed to, and that your data is secure, that the kernel performs the way it's supposed to, and so on and so forth. So those are probably the major users of
Yeah,
FIO.
I would think you're testing for regressions too, right? You apply a fix to the file system or some sort of block device driver or something like that, and all of a sudden your performance degrades. It's like, oh well, this will be a test to validate that and don't have regressions.
Basically, anyone can run it. Whoever wants to do some sort of benchmark testing or an application or whatever you want, you can run it and just see if it's meeting your requirements, the drive.
Just run it on your laptop. Make sure your organization's not doing stupid things. Decreasing your performance. In the interest of time, can he address it right after the meeting? And if we're a little social, I appreciate it. We got started a little bit late. And, well, preview. What's the TLDR on this?
O-Direct or Direct O?
Direct IO, O Direct, yes.
O-Direct, right?
Yeah.
Is there a parameter that I can use to bypass the swap or whatever the cache?
Yeah, it's direct equals 1. That was in the job file, the second job file.
That's what I want.
Okay, the direct equals 1 handled that. Okay. Oh, well, thank you to Vincent, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate that. It's always good to have tools to keep people honest, especially vendors. Let's see, what next? Next month, John Kennedy returns. Is this...
So John Kennedy's the guy who used to run NoVaLUG for many years. I don't know how many people remember him, but he'll be here next month doing a job hunting seminar. This will probably be the last time we see him because he is actually leaving the area. So.
You moving to England or where?
You'll have to ask him.
Question number 1. Yeah, so...
He was there every time during the virtual meetings with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, bring your questions and bring your friends. It says we'll have a panel of invited guests.
Yep, yeah, he's putting together. I think Adam from Ridgeline is going to be one of them. Yeah, so but yeah, he's bringing in some recruiters and um,
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I think we all know people that might be needing jobs or looking to change. So feel free to bring a friend and introduce them to the group.
yeah, spread the word.
Fossish Tech News. Let's see what we have today. Proton Mail desktop app, privacy-focused email service. Check it out, download it, play with it. We're always, want privacy and security within our email apps. Gleam 1.0 has been released. Programming language, they've gone ahead and been bold enough to go to 1.0 instead of living at 0.97 like some things have done for many, many years. So check that out. They say that it's stable and robust. SSH backdoor through XZ. This link takes you to a history of the current situation. Andy, you want to talk to this? I know you've gone on at length in the tech channels.
Well, it's a very interesting backdoor. I can't be the only one who's heard about this, right? Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Good.
sorry.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so people are still wondering whether it's a state actor that did this, but it was many years of social engineering to and extremely yeah, but just the way they did it, they didn't compromise SSH itself. They went through and did it through XZ, and they found a project where the maintainer was just completely had it, and yeah, it's very fascinating. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of spy novel or movie about this. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, they didn't compromise the code. They compromised the test suite. So when they ran the test suite, they then pulled in some precompiled binaries that then ran no exploit.
Right, yeah, reading up on it. So there are a couple interesting things to me for it. A was the single maintainer, right? You can always get in trouble with a single maintainer, but also the mental health aspect of the situation. And then also, was it a state actor? And it was very slow to integrate these, but part of the problem came when they leaned on the maintainer to more quickly insert some of these things rather than using due diligence. But it's an interesting read, and clearly it's going to continue having ramifications. European Commission's use of Microsoft 365 breaches data protection law for EU. It'd be really easy to wag our fingers at Microsoft in this case, but this was a mistake by the EU where they didn't properly give the parameters to Microsoft as far as what they said needed to be done for privacy and use in the EU. So the EU is scrambling, their data protection people are scrambling to get something in place with Microsoft by the end of the year. But how this crosses over into the open source is that people are saying Open Libre is also already compliant with all of the EU's data protection laws, and that they should move away from Microsoft. It's a fun little read.
I think Zach had it.
OWASP had a data breach for a security project that's kind of egg on your face. It was an old VM from 2019, and the thing's been there for a while, but it was okay because the directory wasn't indexed, so it was very hard to get to. Yeah. Obscurity, or it's security through obscurity. Redis proposed a new license or has a new license, and the original maintainers have come back and forked it, in protest to the license change. That's a good read if you're into open source licensing.
Can you go back on that one? Read that. Yeah. Sorry.
These are all online, by the way.
Yeah, they're all part of the the Hedgehog. Oh, Russ, the bad bat bug. So, okay. So the gist of this is that because people just went along with Microsoft's command, cmd.exe and the way it handles arguments and parses them, that everybody else just kind of lived with the stupidity of Microsoft. So there's blame on both sides here. And again, another interesting read. and appendix. I didn't see this earlier. Status of affected programming language and what they have done to fix them. You got any more on this one, Andy?
Well, it's the highlighted one is the Java says they're not going to fix it.
Are we surprised? Faucus area. Let's see, I didn't read this part. Nova's Night of Science, when? May 8th, 2024. Nova Community College. Free. We like free. Oh, kids. This is cool. I don't have any K through 12 anymore, but if any of you do. Southeast Linux Fest 2024, Charlotte, North Carolina. Back to you. You have a quick in-meeting summary or
can you do it that way?
survey? Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Oh, by show of hands, how did you hear about the meeting? From a friend? From the website?
I think if you click it.
Oh, is there more? Oh, well, you didn't tell me that. Okay, meetup.com. Yeah. NoVaLUG mailing list. We're about 50, well, 50-50 if people aren't voting twice. Mastodon.
Doesn't matter.
Mastodon, Fediverse.
All right.
Friend.
No one has friends. All right.
I heard about this from a friend, and now I regret it. Other. What's other? Oh.
I don't know. We have people here who attend the NoVaLUG 6, 7, 8.
Okay. I use Linux and free open source software. Show of hands.
Click
in general. Oh, you do. Oh, you made these way too fancy this time. As a hobbyist, there's going to be a lot of raised hands. As a system administrator, yeah. As a computer programmer, yep.
All what I do programming.
As a technology professional in general, yep. As a technology supervisor or manager, and I should be raising my hands to all these. How did you get to the meeting? Oh, let me. Oh, look at that Metro. One Metro, Andy.
All right.
Walk or bike, scooter or skateboard.
Motorcycle.
Car. Okay, so parking is always definitely going to be a thing.
The bike, scooter, how did you get here?
Oh, 495.
But on what? Motorcycle.
Oh, he's yeah, you see the helmet at his feet. No.
It's the Linux of transportation.
Right on. Yeah. How do you prefer to interact with other NoVaLuggers online? By show of hands. NoVaLUG mailing list. Meetup.com. I think I chatted in it last time and not many people were participating, but Mastodon Fediverse. Yeah. People are unpredictable and illogical.
Also,
DC Test Slack, is that what you said?
Does anyone still use that?
No, not the one NoVaLUG Slack. The others almost nobody on that.
Mm-hmm.
The actual DC Tech Slack, it's been around for a long time. It's like 10,000.
Okay.
Very active.
Are people? But is anyone in? Is
Yeah.
anyone in this room?
It's not terrible. So,
Well, but is anyone in this room using it?
I do.
Okay, because last time I was in there was nothing but political rants.
Well, they're pretty good about. There is a fairly active political channel, but they keep it in the political channel.
Okay.
So you don't tune into it, you don't see it.
And by show of hands, should Andy generate a new IRC server for us for this group?
No. Someone else can do it.
I mean, there is NoVaLUG, the NoVaLUG Slack, but to your point, never really took off. I mean, there's a couple of us still logging.
Side projects, new NoVaLUG website, novalug.org.
Oh yeah, can you click on the link?
Yeah, this website looks nice, by the way. Nice job.
Would you guys be open to Discord?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's what I was about to say, because I can set up a Discord.
I would join one.
Alright, I'll set it there.
Yeah.
If you want to set it up, send them to Discord. Just send up the link to the mailing list.
Got it.
Just well, maybe your poster.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to share it with you.
So I just wanted to point out the new website. We have this linked list area, and sorry, Matt, your thing up there. last time we had the collaborative notes, we still have that this time, and a lot of people started putting their email addresses in there. Not really sure that wasn't the intent, because if you put your email address on a public thing, you're just asking for trouble. But what we want is if you want to have a link to like your but Matt and I have our Mastodon account there. But LinkedIn, whatever, GitHub profile, just fill out that form and I'll put it on the list. But a lot of you gave us email addresses last time, and I don't think that was probably what we didn't want to do. But anyway. All right. Anyone else have side projects for them? Yes.
Side information and a project. First one is Mistborn. It's really cool application. I'm working with Mr. Steve Forster on it. It's you guys look it up. It's on Mistborn. It's called Stormblessed Mistborn GitLab. Don't go to the it is named after a science fiction novel, so you're going to get a bunch of junk when you put it on YouTube. So please put the GitLab in there, or you're going to miss it. Home security. It's basically enterprise security for your home. It has Suricata, it has Wazoo. You can run the whole system, you have your own scene in your own house. WireGuard to everything you have. And it has a Tor server, the Only Office suite, and a couple of other things, Guacamole from Apache and everything. And you can actually use Apache Guacamole without having to worry about any of the bug problems that they have, because all of your connections are run through that wonderful thing known as WireGuard. It's a really great thing. And in the news thing, I thought I might make a note. OpenTofu is pretty much ready to go, so you do not need to use Terraform anymore. Crossplane is still not compatible, but the guy told me at the latest CNCF meeting that's probably going to change. And then OpenBow, if you don't like having to pay, if your company doesn't want to pay HashiCorp for Vault, a saving grace is coming soon. OpenBow is going to replace Vault as a community fork. And they're getting ready, I think the next one they're going to do is Nomad or Console.
Okay. I didn't get anything you just said, but what did I know what HashiCorp Vault is. I did, but you just threw out like a number of projects there, and I was like, okay, it's all right. Hope someone else. It's not just for me, so hope other people got it. Yeah.
Something I've been working on the past month is I got a new keyboard, and I'm writing my own firmware for it. One thing that I'm interested in as a hobby is those old Digimon Tamagotchi keychains. You can connect them and have them fight. I have something called a DCOM, which is a USB interface for that. So I'd like to build a miniature Tamagotchi interface in my keyboard and connect my keychain to it, and they can fight and stuff.
Interesting. Are you using QMK or?
Yeah, I'm using QMK right now because it has weird hardware features, and QMK has the best support for all that stuff.
So you're writing that all in C and doing the firmware. Yeah. I've got a Adafruit macro pad but it uses KMK, which is the Python thing.
Oh yeah.
So much less involved than the QMK stuff, but still pretty cool. So, anybody else? Yes, no. Can you put your notes, your information into the meeting notes, the hedge doc thing we have? That way we can capture it. I'll show it to you. How about that? All right. I think we're done. This is the part of the meeting where we can. Yes, sir. You want your chaser tickets or? Oh, okay. Sean's got the chaser tickets back there. So this is the co-working collaborative part of the session. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Do we need these or better first? How did you guys do last week? That one first.
Kevin, not Zach. I don't know why I was thinking of that.
It's all right. I know.